Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials happening on YouTube. And the trials we're covering today will be day 4 of the Mark Jensen retrial, in which you're going to hear so much about penises, you're going to just be stymied. And we're going to talk about the trial of Alex Jackson. Now, but first, that comes from Big Brother. But first, we're going to talk about the Murdaugh case. Alec Murdaugh is going on trial on Monday. In just a few days, that trial is set to begin. Now, it's scheduled for January 23rd, which is Monday, but it will probably take them a couple of days to seat a jury. So I don't actually anticipate the opening statements in that case till maybe Wednesday, a week from now. Whenever those opening statements are, I'm going to cover them live, because this trial is one that everyone has been waiting for a long time. There's so many good trials coming up. And then a week after that, the Sarah Boone trial starts. Sarah Boone is going on trial for murdering her boyfriend and stuffing. Well, first she put him in the suitcase. She puts the boyfriend in the suitcase and he dies in the suitcase. Yeah, so we're going to call that one the suitcase murder. That will be, yeah. A lot is going on. Yes, a lot. So I got my coffee. It is this cold, damp day outside, and I didn't even get to walk the dogs because it's raining, it's wet, it's cold. So and this is a converted garage, my studio, and it's always a little chilly. So I got my little space heater going back here, so I put in my hooded scarf that I made, oh gosh, a couple of years ago. It's pink. Cool, huh? Yeah, I'm so warm. Yes, I love it. Let's have some coffee before we dive into all this crime drama. And don't forget, tonight is Craft With Me Wednesday. I think I might get out the watercolors. I haven't done that in a few weeks. Well, I did it 2 weeks ago. Maybe it's time for crochet. I don't know. We'll see. I need to finish up that cowl that I was working on. And maybe I'll start a new project. Okay, we're going to go with crochet. I just decided. We're crocheting tonight. That way I can leave the diamond painting here and I don't have to like move things around. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm just looking down at this thing. Wow, is this pretty. So last night I realized I'd put the wrong color. This painting it's probably one of the hardest paintings I've ever done, because I'm trying to just put specialized drills in certain places, and I realized I put specialized drills where I didn't want specialized drills, and so I had to take them all off and put the regular drills. Yeah. Yes. And you're like, what, Rebecca? Yes. Well, let's just go with that. So while I am talking to you, we will be doing a little bit more diamond painting. I started on the, I'm starting on the 3rd row, but I think I'm going to go this way. I've turned the painting. Just, you know, the bottom is now here. The top is over here. That's because I ordered a bunch of specialized drills that haven't come in yet for the actual dragon. Come on, turn on. Oh, there we go. There we go. And I apologize for yesterday. I didn't realize until 30 minutes into the 35-minute show that my microphone wasn't on. So I turned the volume up like 500%, but I still sounded like I was in a fish tank. So I do apologize for yesterday's episode. Anywho, all right, oh gosh. I think my ears are bleeding from yesterday's testimony in the retrial of Mark Jensen. Literally, there was, at one point during the day, 20 20-minute discussion of penis photographs and penises. I'll get to that in the testimony. Okay, so the first person I'm going to describe is one of Mark's coworkers, David Nearing. Now, David describes him as a very good friend of Mark Jensen. This is one of those relationships that you have at work where, you know, you get your work and you get your cup of coffee and then you go and you talk to your friend and, hey, what's going on? You know, I had those friends at work. Now I have my sister. Hey, what's going on? Yeah. So that's the relationship that they had, you know. And he would go into Mark's office and he'd lean up against the credenza or he'd grab a chair and they would chit chat. So one of the things, he went into Mark's office one day and Mark wasn't there. And he proceeded to find a notebook and he opened the notebook. And inside were drawings of penises. Now, it was at this point that the defense objects, and they say, you know, relevancy, you know, that saying that, you know, this has nothing to do with the murders. So the prosecution's argument, this is the 20-minute penis argument. So they make their objections. The prosecution argues, hey, in the appellate decision in this case, the appellate court mentions the word penis 146 times or something like that. I may have the number wrong, but... And then the defense is like, Your Honor, the jury's still here. So, and I object to them hearing all of this. I'm like, oh, yeah. So the judge excuses the jury, and then they continue their penis conversation. So, but in the end, he finds that it's relevant. He says, listen, the issue of penises has been an issue in this case, and it's coming in. You know, clearly this guy was obsessed with penises. What it has to do with the murders, I'm not sure. I guess it shows the type of person that this guy was. I mean, if you're obsessed with penises, does that mean you're going to commit murder? I don't know. Anyway, it came in. And then later on, after the lunch hour, the judge says, you know, during my lunch hour, I sat and read that appellate decision again about all the penis. Yeah, anyway. So, some of the conversations that David Nearing had with Mark Jensen involved whether or not, this is following the death of Julie Jensen, whether or not he should have his girlfriend, Kelly Labonte, come to the wake. He said, I can introduce her as my coworker. And David Nearing says, you know, that's probably not a good idea. And he then at a later point, he said, and whether or not she could, well, maybe it was during the same conversation, whether or not, you know, when he brings her for the wake, because she didn't live in Kenosha, she lived in another St. Louis, so where the headquarters of this company were that they both worked for. So he's like, should I have her stay at my house? And David's like, no, not a good idea. Then he recalls that they had this conversation on Friday. This was after he was arrested for the murder of his wife, but he was out on bail. So he continued to work. He just continued on with his life because he was arrested. You know, the murder happens in 98. He's not arrested till 2002, and then he's not tried until 2008. So during this, he's out on bail this whole time. He's working, he's, you know, getting married, he's having babies, he's doing all this, he's living life. So he recalls one of the conversations that they had on a Friday, and he doesn't remember what month it was or what year it was, but it was after he was arrested. Mark was talking about how the police had taken his home computer and he would really like to get that back. And David says to him, you know, I'm a little surprised they haven't taken your work computer too. So the following Monday, he comes in and Mark says, oh, My computer's fried. My work computer. I had to call St. Louis to get another one. How convenient. Now, he talked about, going back to prior to the murder, he was talking about how concerned he was about his wife's behavior, that she wasn't eating, that she would lock herself in the bedroom, that she was losing weight, she was disinterested in doing anything. So David had his wife set up a lunch with her because they had gone out, they were social friends, the two couples. And they did a lot of things together. They would vacation together. They would go on trips and do things together, go out for dinners, and which David Nearing said stopped when Mark started having this affair with Kelly Levante. They didn't really socialize outside of work much after that. But he went home and he asked his wife, hey, Mark is telling me that his wife's not doing well, and maybe you could call her and see how she's doing and maybe take her to lunch, or So his wife, Sharon, Sharon's the next one on the stand. So she takes the stand and she corroborates everything her husband said, but she says, yeah, he told me he was concerned about Julie. So I called her and she seemed okay, and so I invited her to lunch. So they went to, what's the name of that restaurant? Culver's. That's it. They went to Culver's. I never liked that place. Anyway, they have good ice cream, but the rest of the food, no. So they go to Culver's. Julie brings her youngest son, Douglas, because he wasn't in school yet at the time. So she brings him. They went to Culver's, and Sharon says, she looked fine to me. She said she was not happy with the way things were in her marriage, but she she didn't express that she was depressed. She didn't look depressed. Seemed fine. The next person that takes the stand is another coworker, and she worked with Mark Jensen from 1998, the summer of 98 through 2005. And she corroborated the story that, yes, Mark had this notebook in his office with drawings of penises. Apparently, this was not a secret in the office. Then, the testimony of Kelly Labonte, except that's not her name now. She's married to somebody else. So it was Labonte, then it was Greenman, then it was Levante again, and then it was Jensen, and then it was Levante again, and there was somebody else. Yeah, I think this is her third marriage she's on. Anyway, this testimony, the first 2 hours, I would say, was the prosecution going through emails back and forth between the defendant and Kelly Levante. But here's the most interesting part. When she started having the affair with Mark Jensen, she was engaged to another man. At the time she met Mark, she was single, but she was engaged to this other guy named Mark. So the first sexual encounter they had was just oral sex. But I should have put a warning on this video, shouldn't I? Don't listen to this in front of the kids, because we're going to talk about penises and oral sex. Oh dear. Maybe I will put a warning on this. So the prosecution asked, for you or for him? And she's like, oh, both. Oh my God. I don't know how this woman got through this testimony, because I would have crawled under the desk, I'm sure. Can I just put a bag over my head and testify about all this? I don't want anybody to see me. Mark told her that his wife was a prude. Apparently she would not engage in oral sex with her husband. I don't know. So these emails go back and forth and back and forth. And at one point he's talking about, they always signed the letters IDLY, which is I do love you. And this correspondence went on for months. Meanwhile, their first sexual encounter was when they were both assisting with the setup of this new office for where this new branch office, it was in a town called Appleton. So that's the first time they had sex. So at one point, this woman agrees that these emails, that this is an extraordinarily unusual conversation that they would have back and forth. That at one point, Mark would ask her to describe her previous sexual encounters, and so these emails went back and forth. They, she cut him off and say, "Well, listen, I'm going to give my 1 month marriage some, a try and see if this works." And then another time she's talking about, "Hey, my husband and I think we're going to try to have a baby," but at no time during this on again, off again, first they'd be planning to meet somewhere and then they wouldn't. And the conference that Mark Klug overhears, or is talking to Mark Jensen, and he tells him about ways to kill your wife. That happened at this conference that Kelly actually helped plan that conference out and went to the conference with her husband. Her husband was with her at that conference. So this was not a conference where she was having sex with Mark Jensen, because her husband was there. What did I drop? Oh, my pen. Hold on. So the prosecution goes through these emails in such detail. What did you say? What did he say? What did you say? And what does that mean? And it was just sort of banter back and forth between the two of them. With respect to this Windstar cruise, he said, let me know by the end of the year if you want to do this. Because she said, give me some time to think about it. I'll make a decision by the end of the year, like the end of 1998. Now, during none of these conversations did any of it have to do with his wife, Julie Jensen, or his plan to, use the poisons or anything like that. So on the day that Mark's wife passes away, the following morning, Kelly learns from her boss that Mark's wife has died. So she places a call to him. She doesn't get through to him, and then he returns her call the next day. And then in January of 1999, the following month, and she does say that she spent a couple of weekends with Mark in that January. She goes to see him. But in January, she has this huge fight with her husband, and she leaves him, files for divorce, and by the end of March, she's divorced. So in February, she quits her job with this company that Mark's works for. She quits. She moves herself to Kenosha, sets herself up in an apartment, and goes and visits Mark. But she has her own place. He gives her $12,000 the end of March just to help her with the move and to pay bills. Then it wasn't until November of 1999 that she actually moves in with the defendant. Now, by now she's divorced. She moves in with him. They don't get engaged until February of 2002, which is just right before he gets charged with this murder. Then they don't get married until 2004, and then they get divorced. She files for divorce in 2009. After he's convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, she divorces him, and now she is remarried. Now, this is the point where the testimony ends. We're now like 3-something hours into this woman's testimony. it doesn't end, but this is where the judge says, okay, we're going to pick this up tomorrow. So there's not been any cross-examination, and the prosecution was getting ready to show a 10-minute video. So that's what's going to be shown this morning, and then the defense will have their cross-examination. So interesting. And the details in these emails were so salacious. I mean, like, oh, wow. Like he had named his penis, and yeah. He was obsessed. Obsessed. Okay. Let's talk about the Alex Jackson trial. So the day was filled with body camera footage, more body camera footage. So the first was Officer Corey Barber, and you can see on his body cam footage, he is the first to enter the house. He enters the house, he hears Alex in the basement. He goes down to the basement. You can see on the body cam Alex lying there with a trail of blood that's come from the wound on his foot. He says to him, "What happened?" And he said, "There was a man." Now, apparently there was some construction going on next door, and the officers interviewed those construction workers, and they had been there since 8 a.m. and they said, "No, we didn't see anything. We didn't see any men or anything like that." Now, Alex is accused of murdering his mother, his father, and his sister. Yeah. And the medical examiner did testify. They showed over 40 autopsy photos, and she described the gunshot wounds that killed all three of those individuals. Then they heard from Officer Timothy Brown, who, after ascertaining, securing the residence, ascertaining if everybody, where the deceased were, he goes back to the basement to be with Alex, and he sees Alex fiddling around with a .22 casing, and he says, you should put that down. And he did. And then he rode in the ambulance with Alex to the hospital, and he told the investigating officers arrived at the hospital to interview Alex, and he told them, he says, yeah, he's out of it. I think he's in a state of shock. Then there was another officer, Ryan Dunbar, who canvassed the neighborhood for surveillance footage. And after reviewing everything that he obtained, he could not find any evidence that there had been any person, entering or leaving the home of the Jacksons at the time of the murders, or that the Jackson home had been broken into. Nothing supported by any, either the neighbors seeing it or their surveillance footage capturing it. So that's where we leave off on that murder trial. Yes, I apologize for not being able to talk today. My goodness. Blah, 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 blah. Gosh, I know. I'm not a news reporter. I'm just a crafter, right? What a dreary day. No sun. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Do, do, do. Wow, I got through all of that. Yes. All right. Calendar time. So today we're going to talk about a survivor story. Part 1 of Paul Martin Andrews, The Boy in the Deer Box. What? Okay. Part 1, Trapped Underground. Paul Martin Andrews was on his way to the convenience store to pick up some milk on the snowy afternoon of January 11th, 1973 in Portsmouth, Virginia. Portsmouth, Virginia. When a man stopped him, the man introduced himself as Pee-wee and offered 13-year-old Andrews $3 if he would help him with his brother move some furniture. Andrews hopped into Pee-wee's car, but he quickly grew uneasy. Pee-wee drove Andrews into the woods, then told him he needed help lifting supplies out of his brother's deer box, an underground box where a hunter hides while hunting deer. When they got to the deer box, Pee-wee pulled out a knife and pushed Andrew inside the box. The deer box was 4 feet wide and 8 feet deep. Pee-wee beat and raped Andrews 3 times a day for the next 7 days. On the 8th day, he shackled Andrews' ankle to the box and left him for dead. What? That's part 1. Come back tomorrow for part 2 of The Boy in the Deer Box. Wow. 1973. Wow. My son was 13 years, no, I was 13 years old in 1973. Yeah, I was 13. Oh my goodness. Okay. So Andrew, Paul Martin Andrews, would be same age as me. Yeah. That happened a long time ago. All right, guys. That's the show for today. I hope to see you in the live tonight. Come by, say hello to me. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, I read all of them and I love your comments. So, also, I haven't done my spiel in a while. Don't forget to hit that like button. Yes. Subscribe. Share this video with a friend that you think might enjoy listening to this while they craft. And